Alex Radical from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Invincible Aftermath from Indie Boards and Cards. This is a prototype, all rules and components subject to change, and I'll have a link to the crowdfunding campaign down below. And Invincible the card game, there's a lot of backstory or history to this game. You see, Invincible the card game Aftermath is the follow-up to Invincible the card game, which was already out from Indie Boards and Cards, which is based on the Astronite system, which in turn is based on Aeon's End as a system. Lots of things to get into. Aeon's End is a cooperative boss battler card game, very popular, tons of content for it. Astronauts came along and tweaked the formula, making one system or another better for players, and then Invincible put the IP onto Astronites while keeping the same formula. I believe the games are combinable, although you would have to have sleeves for the different backs. But past that, they are the same basic system, and you could combine the content in those systems, and now we have Aftermath, the next phase of that system. But this is basically a cooperative deck building, card driven boss battler game, similar to the games that came before it. Now, a few things to get into before we dive into my review. Number one, while this video is not sponsored, this review is not sponsored content, Indie Boards and Cards did sponsor a preview on this game that will be going up separately. So while this isn't sponsored, that could muddy the waters for you. I just want to make sure you have all the information so you can decide if this is of value to you. And secondly, while Indie Boards and Cards is not sponsoring this, AllPlay is a channel sponsor, not specific to this video, but AllPlay in general is a channel sponsor. We'll talk more about them at the end of the video. With that said, let's go ahead and dive into what this game is. I'm going to do the very brief overview on this because you could check out that preview if you want the full how to play, what the game is doing. But the short version, I'm going to try to keep it short, the short version, this is a cooperative deck building game. It uses the same system in Aeon's End, Astronites, and the first Invincible, in which you aren't going to shuffle your deck when your deck runs out. You simply flip it over and continue drawing. That allows the players to have a bit more agency over how they build the deck, a bit more control. Some control, some not, depends on how it goes, but you basically have the ability to how to seed your deck, how to discard cards, so you can control what things come up in the future. You're going to be taking control of various heroes from the Invincible franchise. You can then face off against various villains from the Invincible franchise. I believe Aftermath is going to be based on Season 2. But you have those characters in the game. You could face off against the villains, each villain brings its own flavor, decks, and cards to the game that you have to power through. They're going to be slowly leveling up. Each time they go through the deck, they're going to add a level card. There's also difficulty adjustments. You can add Expert or Nightmare mode as well. Meantime, you're buying cards from these 6 decks. There are 6 different decks over here. Each one is completely variable. There are unique cards in those decks, and you're going to have the first 2 being more of your economy, building up your engine so you can have more energy to spend on things like upgrading your slots, your power, or buying more cards. Yeah, the tech, which has a wide array of different abilities it has, as well as the fact that you can go ahead and overcharge tech by activating it, discarding the card entirely, or putting it at the bottom of its deck, not gaining the card, but doing it right away. This can be very helpful endgame as well. And then you have 3 different levels of weapons. Again, as you draw a weapon, the one below it is going to be a different weapon, so you can have different cards coming out as you choose how to build your deck in the way that builds the most synergies. Meanwhile, you're defending a location. In the starting scenario over here, you're defending the Washington Monument. Those are going to have abilities on them as well, and you're basically trying to stop them from going down to 0 or having both of your heroes knocked out, exhausted at the same time. Meanwhile, you're trying to reduce stock Seismic, or whichever villain you're fighting against, from their starting health down to 0, while basically trying to power past the things they throw at you. Because they're not just throwing like strikes at you, one-time effects, they're also placing minions into play that you'll have to deal with, or they're going to be constantly hitting you whenever they take their turns. Speaking of which, while your decks are not shuffled, the turn order in this game is going to be comprised of 6 cards. It's always 6 cards, 2 are going to be the villain, and the other 4 correspond to the players in play. That will be different depending on the player count, but for example, I have a 2-player game, which means in those 6 cards in a random order, you're going to have 2 villain turns, 2 turns from player 1, and 2 turns from player 2, and you have to kind of adapt to whatever happens. You don't know the order that the villain cards, that the turn order cards are going to come out, and as to how you're going to have to react to them. Each hero brings their own unique flavor, which means their own unique cards, or well, unique-ish starting cards. Some cards are the same, but unique starting cards, as well as unique elements that they bring, their powers, for example. Duplicate over here, who personally is my favorite so far from the new characters. She has these cards that kind of you can utilize to have her extras, basically helping you out while you upgrade those extras. That's enough of a general... bystanders. Let's talk about bystanders. I've played Astronites, I've played Aeon's End. I have not played the first Invincible, so I don't know if this is present in the first Invincible. I believe the first Invincible added the assist mechanic, which is something new where you can play cards to help players and then draw them back for your turn. But we have bystanders here, which again, I don't know if they're present the first time round, but bystanders are these cards that as you rescue bystanders, you're going to flip over a card and take their benefit, and then once you completely clear the bystanders, your cards are going to get stronger. You'll have an all clear mechanic that effectively your focus is now directly on the villains. You don't have to worry about saving people, and you'll get stronger. So really going through the bystander deck can be incredibly powerful. That's a lot of overview for the game. Let's go ahead and dive into my review, what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking. Now, in general, I'm going to start with something that is going to be a pro and con. This is going to be both in the what I like and what I don't like section. Invincible, not Invincible, and Zen relied on fixed card market decks. Astronauts and Invincible, on the other hand, they rely on these randomized card decks. So you still have certain pools of cards to guarantee some diversity of different things, but the types of cards that come out are going to be completely all over the place. You're not building a strategy based on looking at the deck. Rather, you're drawing whatever card or paying for whatever card is first available in that category, and then seeing what comes up next. That allows for a lot of variety in the actual experience you have, because you never know what you're going to get, which is both something I like and something I don't like. We'll come back to that later. But I do like the fact that as I buy a card, I'm like, ooh, what's going to be underneath it? What's that fun thing? There's tons of card diversity in the game, so you really are constantly looking at an ever-changing market as you choose which card is going to be added to it. The bystander and the all-clear mechanic, I touched upon this a little bit already, but I really like that mechanic both thematically and mechanically. Thematically, because there's bystanders, your attention is diverted. That card that's going to deal 2 damage can deal 4 damage when you don't have to worry about hurting people along the way. I really like that thematically. And then mechanically, it's also fun. You have the sense, like the whole arc of this game in general, games like this to be fair, but the whole arc of the game is you're kind of facing off against an enemy, you feel overpowered, you feel like you can't do enough, you feel like you can't deal like 50 damage. The game starts, you're pinging away 1 damage here and there, they throw a minion in play that needs another 3 or 4 damage to kill, and you're like, how can I ever take them down? But then you slowly power up, and that works both in terms of the general arc of the game, again, thematically and mechanically. Like you're feeling overwhelmed by the villain, and then slowly powering yourself up so you can actually take them down. It has a nice character, like it has a nice hero arc. It's a good adaptation of the game and the IP. Putting it a hero game onto a game like this, you feel like heroes overwhelmed until eventually you have those moments where you take down the villain. And granted, it's being done in one gameplay as opposed to a whole season, but that arc is present. And I like the bystander deck and how that feeds into that, because again, you both get rewards as you go through it, but then also you have that all clear element where you can start feeling incredibly powerful as soon as you clear those cards, which is a lot of fun. I like the hero and boss variety. This is going to be, and again, I should note, check out the crowdfunding campaign, because usually with these games, there's a bunch of different waves of content, there's extras, so I just know what I have here in the prototype. But even in the prototype, there's a bunch of villains to face off against, again, from the Invincible IP. There's a bunch of heroes to play as, so you have lots of characters to utilize in your favor or against you, and they all bring different flavors. Each villain is its own different way as how it operates. Each hero brings its own custom little abilities to play. I think the villains add greater diversity than the heroes, but it still is nice to have a nice pool of villains and heroes to face off against, because they drastically change the gameplay, more so villains than the heroes. The game is justifiable for difficulty. I like that as well. You start off with basic normal difficulty, you have these normal cards that will be coming out, but if you do find it to be simple, which you probably won't at first, again, you feel overwhelmed at first, you do usually power up, and depending on how well you synergize with other players or what you do, or even just the randomness of how the cards come out, you can have a lot of control over taking them down. But once you do feel that control, which won't necessarily be game 1, once you do feel that control, you can start adjusting the difficulty to make it a harder, more challenging experience. So overall, that whole tempo of the game, it works very well to give you characters that you feel powerful as, upgrade those characters, build their decks, power past the villain, do so in a variety of different gameplay formats. One of the big things that this one does as well, and I don't remember if Astronauts did this, it's been a while since I played Astronauts, but they have this arc of you kind of jump into the game and there's a pre-scripted story. There's like a 4-story arc, a 4-game arc you can play through where they kind of unlock characters as you go and have a degree of unlocks, of team powers, these things that are happening as you play through the game. And then you can also build your own arcs as well. It's just going to be especially relevant if you have other waves of content and you want to kind of put together your own little narrative or gameplay aspects to it. So it's both playable as a single shot, or you can build a little mini campaign out of it. As far as things I don't like in the game, I will say that that arc of powering up, I like the feeling that gives me, but what I don't love is the fact that every game does feel a little samey when you start playing the game, meaning you first go through that arc of your basic card, your 10-card deck, you're trying to make it more powerful, but you're going through the same arc of trying to buy, I think I've said arc 17 times now, you're going through the same pathway of trying to buy a bunch of lower energy cards to get your deck stronger, then buying a few weapons, so The cards themselves will mix that up a little bit, especially given the nature of that random card pool, but at the same time, the general pathway you are going through is going to feel a little samey until you can build up that larger diversity based on the cards that come out, based on what the villain is doing. I do think the first quarter of the game generally feels samey game to game. Also, going back to that fixed versus variable card market deck, I generally, in most deck builders, I have been such a big fan of fixed card market decks. Now, I don't mind it as much. When you have a variable card market, meaning the cards you can't predict what's coming out, you just have the randomness of whatever the cards give you. When you have that in a cooperative game, I don't mind it as much as I do in a competitive game. In a competitive game, because I think my problem with variable card markets is it doesn't feel as much like I can look at a strategy and develop it and build as I go. Rather, it feels like I'm just buying the best card from what's available as opposed to having a strategy that I was pursuing from the get-go. That feeling, to me, is more important competitively, because otherwise I feel like the random nature of the cards you got that fed into your system versus mine. In a cooperative game, I don't mind it as much because we're on the same team, we're playing together. If you get a good card that works well with your deck, amazing. I want that for us. We are a team. But I still like that feeling of being able to look at a card pool from the beginning of the game and then starting to plot my pathway, starting to plot how do I want to build my deck, how do I want to attack the enemy. I like that feeling, and that's missing here. The trade-off is you get that random aspect of, oh look, I just uncovered this tech over here, what's next? Oh my gosh, we have earpiece, that's going to be really helpful. The randomness is a fun little element as well, so it is a trade-off. It's both a pro and a con, like I said already. As far as I can see, others not liking, you can get stuck on certain cards. I mean, this is a good example right here. We have a 6-cost tech card over here. This is not that hard to buy later game. If this is the top card of your deck from the very beginning of the game, that could be something that slows down the players from being able to access the tech because you're not built to be able to buy that yet. And the other cards don't have that pile because these piles are sorted by the cost variety. So you have lower cost energy cards, higher cost energy cards, lower cost, medium cost, and higher cost weapons. So those aren't as much of a problem. You can still get a little stuck, but it's much harder to do so. The tech cards in specific, I will say that if you have a high cost tech card on the deck early game, sometimes that can just sit there for half the game until you build up your pool to be able to deal with that. It's a small thing, but you can get a little stuck on the cards. I'll say that dealing with lots of content in the game, as you have more content, or if you're combining it with Astroknights, that has pros and cons to it. Actually, props for indie boards and cards on this. If they go through the rulebook, they actually do a great job saying, here's how to combine the contents, and here's the pros and cons of each way to do so. Because you're dealing with these variable card market decks, do you just want to shuffle it all together? Do you want to shuffle all the content from wave 1? Do you want to pick and choose which cards go into the deck? They have a full page devoted into how you can do it, what your options are, and the pros and cons of each option. But the key thing is, there are cons to each option. So however you do it, as you get more and more content, it can be a question mark of how you deal and integrate with that content in a way that best suits your gameplay style. Again, props to them for making it as clear to you, the player, what your options are and how they're good and bad. But there's always a bad element to them depending on how you do it. As far as final thoughts on Invincible, I almost said Astroknights. As far as final thoughts on Invincible, the card game, from Aftermath, from Indie Boards and Cards, I overall enjoyed the Astroknight system. ANZ has been incredibly popular. I think it's more popular than Astroknights. I personally preferred Astroknights. I thought it was a bit more straightforward, a bit faster. And it's weird to me always because I generally prefer those fixed card market decks. But in this particular game system, I've always preferred Astroknights. And I think Invincible does a great job of putting that IP onto Astroknights. I gave Astroknights a 4 out of 5, and I'm going to give that same rating over here. I don't think this is a better game. I do like the Invincible IP. I am personally a fan. I do think, honestly, if you're not a fan of the Invincible IP, maybe just go with something more generic like Astroknights. But if you are a fan of the Invincible IP, I think they took a good game, took an IP that fits, and did a good job of putting it onto it while adding a little bit of mechanics. Again, assists we have in the first Invincible. We have bystanders over here. I don't know if they're in the first Invincible, but you have those elements that feel thematic to what the game is doing, so it's a really good synergy of a good game system and a good IP on top of it. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, like I said already. As far as other game recommendations, definitely check out Anne's End if you haven't yet, because again, this is built on that system to a degree, while Anne's End is very different and gives you an absolute ton of content to get into. And also check out Unstoppable from John D. Clear and Renegade Games. Unstoppable also gives you that kind of deck building, defeat a bunch of enemies, defeat that boss kind of vibes, with a whole entirely different system. It's a solo game. This is playable solo. You can play a true solo or 2-hand solo. You can even play 3-4-hand solo. The game doesn't recommend that. But check out Unstoppable if you want another feeling as far as the general arc of the game game that is specifically a solo game. And then I mentioned Allplay is a channel sponsor. You can go to allplay.com and check out a ton of things from the shelves behind me, to game tables, to playmats, to bags. But in this case, we're talking about games. Check out Tidal Blade's Rise of the Unfolders. Allplay works with a bunch of publishers, so you can get a bunch of different games on their site. And Tidal Blade's Rise of the Unfolders will also give you that minion and then boss kind of a theme going on. If you like this kind of, hey, we're going to take down a bunch of enemies, but if you want to see it play out on an actual tabletop with miniatures, as opposed to just being more card-driven, check out Tidal Blade's Rise of the Unfolders from Jude City Games. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you found this review helpful, and as always, I hope you have a good one.